Good morning, everyone.
Good
We are
morning.
so glad you are with us this morning on the chat session on the This Way Network. Happy Monday
Yep.
morning to all of you. And we are especially delighted because we have Kcarl Smith back with us, one of our favorites.
That's
Glad to
right.
be back. It's been a
Yeah.
minute. I'm glad to be back.
Yes, sir. Well,
Yeah.
happy holidays as well. Also, happy Hanukkah to our Jewish brothers and sisters out there. And we're very excited to have back with us. He is beyond just someone who has been doing great things out there. But we have Kcarl and Smith has been on a couple times with us, and author. He gets out, he does some incredible public speaking. He's also a advocate for STEM and vocational education. Welcome back to the chat session, Kcarl.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you so much. And again, once again, I'm happy to be here. Always look forward to opportunity to get a chance to rub elbows with you all.
Yes.
Well, we're grateful you're here because you usually give us an opportunity to talk about what you're doing that's new. Last time you were here, I think we were promoting a book,
Yeah.
and this time you have a new book.
I do. It's been a while then, 'cause that book's been out about 2 years, maybe right now. It's been that
Yeah.
long? Oh,
Time,
wow.
Yeah.
time for it. Time
But,
for an
but we
It
update.
were
really
still
does.
talking. Yeah, we were still talking about that book. I think we had you on a couple of times after that because there was just so much to say
Yeah,
in it,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
so much we couldn't cover in just 1 hour. So
I'm really excited about the book I just finished. It's a little bit different, Rodney, than what
Yes,
I've
sir.
done before, but it's still the basis, Frederick Douglass. That book is entitled Douglass versus Marx. And so therefore it's fictional because
Mhm.
although Karl Marx and Frederick Douglass were both born in the same year, they never met. They never had a discussion. So the book is fictional from the point that we put them in a situation where they're actually debating. That's the
Mhm.
fictional part to it. But
Wow.
what they're debating is based on their own philosophy.
Okay.
They're talking about the U.S. Constitution, the free speech, the right of people to keep and bear arms, liberty versus socialism,
Hmm.
equality, and
Yes, sir.
so Douglas wrote about these things, and so did Karl Marx. So we put them in a situation where there's 31 dialogues, and they are discussing, debating these issues, all
Okay.
31 of them. And
Wow.
without giving the whole thing away, Douglas comes out as a clear winner because his philosophy is based upon moral clarity,
Uh-huh.
logic, and he had real world experiences. Karl Marx was a theorist about oppression. Douglas
Ah.
had real life experiences about oppression. So
Mhm.
his ideology, his philosophy makes
Mhm.
more sense.
And he was a
Read it.
victim of direct
Exactly right. That's
oppression.
right.
Right.
So Karl Marx wrote about oppression, but he never experienced it.
It's
He wrote
different.
something he never experienced. Douglas wrote about it because Douglas had real life experience as a victim of slavery.
And that's the difference
Mhm.
between sympathy and empathy.
That's right. So the power of the book is you have these two titans at that time
Mhm.
going head to head in the discussion about the importance of liberty. Marx makes up his point, and Douglas makes his point, and they talk about the things we're dealing with today:
Wow.
religious liberty, free speech,
Mhm.
education, a
Yes.
parental responsibility for education, the role of government. Douglas wrote about these things, and so this book is actually the first of its kind. Nobody
Mhm.
has ever written a book, fictional book, that put Douglas and Karl Marx into debate, but it's based on what they said and they wrote. So it's accurate in terms of their philosophy.
Mhm. So you kind of broke down both of them's ideology on things and how they actually saw things. But with, Frederick Douglass, as you were saying, he had real application and real proof because he had went through it and how he came out the backside from that.
That's
That's
right.
okay.
As a matter
Understood.
of fact, in one of the dialogues they had, I don't know which one it is, they're talking about, Douglas talks about his real life experience of facing oppression. He said, Kcarl, you didn't experience that. You're writing about something you don't even think about.
Wow.
You formed up your theory by drinking coffee in a coffee shop. I have the whips on my back to tell you what oppression is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked about the role of religion, because Karl Marx said religion is the opiate of the masses, meaning that religion makes you docile in this world so you get your reward in heaven. And Douglas said, no, religion gave me inspiration to overcome slavery. And Douglas breaks it down. So what happened in writing this, my brother and I, we actually role played this whole thing here. One time he was Douglas, I was Marx, and we were going at it. And we recorded everything we did. That's how we put all this together. But it's everything, but we had to go back and read. I was already heavy in Douglas and understood his philosophy, but he and I had to go back and read Das Kapital, all the things that Marx said, his speeches and his writings, to make sure that when we put this dialogue together, this debate together, it was actually based on what they said in terms of documented history.
Wow.
And that's one thing I wanted to ask you, Kcarl. Was it difficult, and do you feel like you managed to silence the critics in your book that would have said, oh, well, you're clearly biased and therefore you're not giving Karl Marx his due, you're not presenting his arguments appropriately, and if you had, Douglas wouldn't come out looking quite as good. Are you concerned about anybody giving you that kind of criticism?
I'm not really concerned about it, because I know we did our homework. Everything in that book is based on what Karl Marx said, or based on his philosophy. Karl Marx talked about he didn't care for religion. He didn't care for parents being responsible for the education of their child. He talked about the idea of community involvement versus liberty. He didn't care about individual liberty. So he wrote about those things. So that is all throughout the book. That the basis of his philosophy was in order for the oppressed to have some type of rights, there has to be a revolution. He always talked about the revolution. And Douglas said, revolution to give me my freedom. Douglas said, the Constitution gave me my freedom.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
And Karl Marx didn't care for constitutions.
Yeah.
He didn't talk about the U.S. Constitution in particular, but he didn't like constitutions in general, because he said constitutions are written by men who are in power, and they write the Constitution to keep their power.
Wow.
That's why he didn't care for it. But Douglas and Marx talked about that, because Douglas said, look, he said, you got to understand, our Constitution reads we the people. It doesn't say we the white people. And they get to that.
I got to tell you.
I love the way you covered that in the book.
So it's powerful. And it's
I was thinking, man, this book would be an amazing play.
I don't have the theoretical mind like you do in terms of theater, but if you say so, I agree with you.
I think, because of the debate, if acted out and you had scenarios that explain this, people would really, really get this, and they would, they could see the conflict and everything. And wow.
That's it. Because by writing it in a dialogue, debate form, when I had my grandchildren read my manuscript, they loved it, because it was like they were there.
Right.
And they see it real time by them going back and forth on paper. But you're exactly right. Now, the audio book, I'm gonna have to get some help in doing this. So the ebook is up there, the audio book, the hardcover. The audio book, we're gonna use AI for that. We got the script written, but we're gonna come up with these little, what do you call these little what's the word for these symbolic of individuals? What's the word?
You're talking about the AI generated characters.
Exactly right. And so we're going to come up with a German voice for Karl Marx, and probably use my Frederick Douglass, and it'll be AI generated using the script that's in the book, going back and forth.
Powerful.
That's above my pay grade, but that's something that was suggested to me. We're going to try to do that.
I'm looking forward to that. I have to mention, if you don't mind, I have been reading the ebook,
Okay.
you know, because you have it out as an ebook, and I've been reading that. And would you mind if I just read an excerpt from Dialogue 1, the very beginning?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious what
That
you're going
may
to say, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm reading this to you directly from the book. This is what's so intriguing to me. So he sets the scene. This is Dialogue 1, God-given liberty versus state control. Scene, a small study room with a warm fireplace crackling nearby. Meeting for the first time, Douglas and Mark sit across from each other. The conversation begins about the essence of liberty. Marx. Ah, the famous Frederick Douglass, the man who escaped bondage only to defend the very system that enslaved him. Tell me, how can a man of your intellect still believe in the illusion of freedom within a capitalist world? Douglass. And you must be the philosopher who chained men's minds long after their bodies were set free. I believe in God-given liberty, sir, not illusions. Freedom is not granted by governments or systems. It is God-given, claimed by the soul that knows it is made in the image of God. That's the beginning. Love that.
And see, my brother, PhD guy, pastor, so he knows Douglas better than I do, to be honest with you. I thought I knew him well, but he understands Douglas better than I do, and I taught him everything I know, right? So that flavor, and Douglas was an ordained Christian preacher. So that was Douglas. That's Douglas, and that's throughout the book. It's all about God-given rights. Our rights come from God, not from man, not from government. That's the theme of Frederick Douglass. And Karl Marx, his theme was, no, the rights are determined by the government. You don't serve God, you serve government. That's throughout the book. And that's what a lot of folks don't know, especially young people.
Right.
When you tell them about socialism, they think about something being social, being caring. They don't equate it to a form of government where they want to control your rights. And that's what the book is all about. The beautiful thing about the book, what we did was, Rodney, not only do we have the dialogue there, but after each debate, each dialogue is followed up with a reflection about that dialogue, the moral of the story, sort of like Aesop fables, and then talking points that you can use that when you go out and have private conversations with your family and friends, you got these talking points based on Douglas philosophy to help you better articulate what you believe in.
Okay.
And then there are 5 to 6, sometimes 10 essay type questions, discussion questions. Then also I provide my answer to those discussion questions because I want you to realize so you can think about how you think about it versus me telling you just what I think about it. To give you a chance to think and process it.
Quick question. I know that you and your brother also are in the education sector, having a private school of your own or charter school. Have you thought about taking these teachings or a curriculum of Frederick Douglass into the public school system?
The answer is yes. And I think this book would do it because this book is non-political.
Right.
We don't talk about any party. The word conservative is not mentioned. The word liberal is not mentioned. Only thing we talk about is good versus evil. Socialism versus liberty.
Okay.
Douglas versus Karl Marx.
So I think you've just come out and said socialism is evil.
Oh yeah.
That's your position? Okay.
That's my position based on Douglas did not use that word, but when you look at what socialism does to individuals, taking away your God-given rights, that's slavery. And Douglas said the first aim of slavery is to separate you from your God. Well, that's what socialism does. It makes you bow down to the altar of the almighty government instead of the altar of Almighty God. That's socialism. And Marx used socialism and communism interchangeably.
Wow.
We did a lot of reading on Karl Marx. About not only his philosophy, about his personal life. I didn't get to his personal life at all. Well, I take that back. At the end, I think one of the last dialogues, Douglas challenges, no, he confronts Marx regarding his lack of work ethic in taking care of his family.
Ooh.
Karl Marx didn't work. He didn't have a
Right.
real job. He depended on people to take care of him. So Douglas challenges him, confronts him. And Douglas said, a man that does not take care of his obligation to provide for his family doesn't deserve to lead, have a philosophy to lead a nation.
Wow. Ouch.
Yeah.
Put a little sting on it. So he got a little,
we got some jabs. Douglas hits him every time, right between the eyes.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I have to, you did put something else that was personal in Douglas's life at the beginning, and it was something I had not seen in your previous book. If it was there, I apologize. I don't know how it went right by me, but if you don't mind, I'm going to read the book from the book again and quote this, because this was mind-blowing to me. One of the most defining moments in Frederick Douglass's life was his physical fight with Edward Covey, the brutal slave breaker. Douglass was about 16 years old, beaten down by months of whippings, overwork, and humiliation. Covey thought he had crushed Douglass's spirit. But one hot August day in 1833, Douglass decided he would no longer be treated like an animal. When Covey tried to tie him up for another beating, Douglass fought back. The struggle lasted nearly 2 hours. Covey called for help, but no one could subdue Douglass. At last, Covey backed down, and from that day forward, Douglass was never whipped again. He later wrote that this was the moment he rekindled the few expiring embers of freedom in his soul. Though he was still legally enslaved, Douglass knew in his heart that he had reclaimed his manhood. He had stood up for his God-given right to be treated as a human being. This experience is what made Douglass's voice so powerful. He did not speak in theories. He spoke as a man who had felt the whip, endured hunger, and risked death to be free. His defense of liberty came down from the deepest reality of human suffering and triumph.
That's why Douglas is so important, that we leverage his life and his writings, because he dispels, just by his life and his writings, all the claims of Marxism. Doesn't work on Douglas. He was a victim. Matter of fact, he was below poverty because he was a slave. So that's why Marxists have no answer for Frederick Douglass, and guess what? They never will.
Very powerful.
So we got to be wise to leverage Doug, because he is our best example of, well, he is, in my opinion, America's greatest liberty messenger, because he was a slave, and he talks about his admiration for the founding fathers, his respect for the U.S. Constitution, all the things that liberty-minded people traditionally embrace. Douglas not only wrote about them, he spoke about them, and he lived it.
Kcarl, you know, we here on the chat session on This One Network, we try to have a balanced opinion. We had someone that made a comment. They said, just what we need, another book. What's your comments about that?
When somebody says that, I get concerned. I make sure they don't get around my children, because the key to learning is your ability to be able to read and have a joy of reading. I don't know who said it, but some philosopher said some time ago, a child that doesn't know how to read, a child that doesn't read has no advantage of a child that doesn't know how to read.
Wow.
Wow.
So where do you get your learning from? You go rely on people to tell you stuff?
Right.
You have to be a reader to look at different sides of things. Don't just rely on people telling you something. I tell my 14-year-old son all the time, don't believe anything I tell you. You go back and read it for yourself and come back and tell me what you think. He said, Dad,
check the source.
That's right.
And weigh the sources.
I said, Dad, you gonna lie to me?
There's a lot of
information.
There's a lot of information out there written and or
That's
uploaded
right.
online.
That's
And
right.
some of this stuff is complete falsehood.
That's right.
And so we really do need to, just like in the scripture, it says we got to rightly divide the truth. We got to get down to the crux of the matter, because so many times people read things and they take it as fact. They
That's right.
see things online and they react before they know the whole story. And matter of fact, we have to address this. Sadly, the world of entertainment, media, all around the world, sadly, the nation's been rocked by the senseless killing of Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle Singer. And these two are, Rob was a staple in Hollywood, having been nominated for so many awards and writing incredible movies. Harry Met Sally, and the list goes on and on for all of these incredible.
The Princess Bride. Yeah.
Princess Bride, so many great things. And I actually had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Reiner. I had worked at the time, I was working for ABC News, Channel 7 here in Los Angeles. And he came on as a guest. And I guess he was promoting something and came on, and I had the pleasure of meeting him. And then his dad, Kcarl Reiner, was very close with Mel Brooks, because they did the 2,000-Year-Old Man, the comedy album.
Right.
And I asked Rob, what was it like, following in his father's footsteps? And he says, I don't even try. He spoke so highly of his father. And everybody was trying to wonder what exactly happened. And sadly, they said that, a prayer needs to go out for the whole Reiner family. Their son, Rob, who has been living a life battling drugs and other things and mental illness and things, was arrested for the murder of his parents. And so, we prayed at the whole entire This Way Network family, the chat session, everybody that comes on every Monday. Make sure you pray for the Reiner family and your own family, because it's a sad day. Really is.
It is. Yeah, my prayers and heart goes out to the family, and especially this in this season.
Yes.
When family is really important. Should be every day, but how it is this season. Yeah.
But your book your book sounds amazing, because everything that you've done, and you are a researcher. You don't just put these things together, and to be able to take a fictional approach, but yet a very impactful approach, to be able to see these two ideologies, mesh head to head. That's pretty powerful and very creative, I might add.
Well, it's God-given. So that's the book, Douglas versus Marx. The piece I have not shared with y'all, I actually came out with a second book right behind that. And that came out 2 days after. I wrote this book about 2 years ago. I just never published it. So if you study Douglas' most famous speech was, "What to the slave is the 4th of July." His favorite speech was "Self-Made Men." In Self-Made Men, Douglas probably gave this speech about 50 times, and he always kept a folded copy of that speech in his pocket. Self-Made Men. So in Self-Made Men, Douglas lays out his action plan for success. How did he rise from being a slave to being a 1%er financially, to being an advisor to 5 U.S. presidents? How did he do that? So in the first book, the Marx versus Douglas, I lay out the importance of defending your liberty, claiming your God-given rights, your liberty. And then the second book says, once you have your liberty, how do you become successful in the United States? So the second book is a self-help book based on Frederick Douglass's Self-Made Man lecture he gave. And that's on the website too. Matter of fact, they're all on Amazon. That book is entitled Unchained Ascension. Unchained Ascension. You got to break the chains. Maybe the changes of poverty mindset. Maybe it's alcoholism. You got to break the chain. Unchained ascent. Unchained ascent.
Okay.
Is it
I mean,
unchained ascension or unchained
As-
ascent?
Ascent, ASCNT, ascent.
Okay.
all
So if you're
right.
gonna
I'm putting
climb,
that in the comments.
yeah, you can't climb if you're chained down with something.
All
And
right.
Douglas said the first thing you got to break is you got to break your victim, your being a victim mentality. You gotta unchain yourself from that. And that's what the
All
book's all
right.
about, based on Douglas's, again, the speech he gave most of the time, a lot of time, self-made men. And my point is, whatever success strategy that worked for a man who was a slave to become successful will
Mhm.
also, if you apply it, will work for a free person today.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes.
And
And
you
powerful.
cannot
you
victimize
touched
Douglas.
on that even in the first book a little
Yeah.
bit. I'm quoting from it again here, and this is referring to Douglas. It says he had lived under a system that denied his humanity, yet he claimed his freedom by learning to read,
Mm.
thinking for himself, and escaping bondage. To Douglas, this proved that liberty is an inner awakening before it is an outer condition. Talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
Well, it all starts with your self-development mentally. If you think
Mhm.
you're a slave, you're going to act as
Mm.
a slave, but you got to change, you got to transform internally. And to me, that's the Holy Spirit's job to help you do that. Once you
Mhm.
transform internally, then externally, things going to fall into place for you, especially when you transform internally and your passion is in line with your God-given purpose.
Mhm.
Mhm.
When your passion is in line with your God-given purpose, you will succeed because God pays child support.
Mhm.
And money will follow you. If that's so, you got to make sure your passion is aligned with your purpose, but it starts internally. How I feel
Mhm.
about myself, how I look at myself when I see myself in the mirror. Um,
Mhm.
no self-doubt. Don't look at my color as a crutch, but look at it as a way I can, as a stepping stone to greatness. That kind of thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Kcarl, I have a serious question. You're absolutely right. Yeah, how one would see themselves, self-motivation, understanding what one's own personal responsibility is in life. But what can you say about those systems that are clearly in place or active that not only make life difficult for just the everyday common man? Because some people have the fortitude to fight and to get at it and have that perseverance, and other people are right at that border where um injustices and things are really that wall that limits some people. Hey, everybody can't be a linebacker. You know what I mean? There's certain people who have to run. They got all kinds of things, but there's some people just don't have the strength. What can we say about those systems that are in place that need to come down, that limit life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness?
I think what we have to say is we got to face it, we got to fight it, we got to fix it. If
Mm-hmm.
those systems are in place, we have to face it. They're there, and we got to call it out like it is. So we got to face
Mhm.
it. And once we
Mm-hmm.
face it, we got to agitate it. We got to fight it.
Right.
Where the playing field is equal for everyone, where everybody
Mhm.
have a chance to climb and discover their God-given gifts and achieve greatness in their life. Then once we face it, we fight it, then we fix it. And then once you fix it, you got to remain vigilant. Make sure you
Right.
don't come back again. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
process of Frederick Douglass. Douglass said,
All right. So
face it,
so
fight it, fix
the
it.
yeah, so the fight it part. Now Marx would say, "Oh, this is where revolution comes in. We have to fight it and tear everything down and force people to go in a certain direction." Is that what you're promoting?
No, but what I'm talking is, I'm really following. I'm a student of Frederick Douglass. Douglass believed in one in moral persuasion. There's
Mm-hmm.
something in you. I'm gonna try to appeal to the doing things because it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then If you don't get that, then witness to you, help you understand to stop focusing on yourself first, but start helping others first. And that's the key to greatness, is by being a servant, not by being a celebrity.
Yes.
Kcarl, how do you
Yes.
address a situation where some people don't want to admit the truth? There's some people who will flat out deny their own personal responsibilities for X, Y, and Z. Personal, I mean, be it people, systems, governments, whatever. If the facts are placed right in a debate, as you're speaking of, somebody has to say, yes, I did that. And the reason why I did this was X. That's how, because I think some of the greatest problems in the world is denial. People are denying the fact that they were directly attributing to massive problems in certain ways. Yes, we can overcome. Yes, it's a mindset thing. Yes, we always need to be vigilant and fight. But I think one of the greatest evils is people not being honest with themselves to say, well, yes, we did that.
Yeah,
And be honest and have to own up to it going forward. And how do we fix that so it doesn't rebirth again? And is there a way of somehow leveling the field, because these things have been a major blow.
I think one of the things that pops in my head is all about accountability. You got one thing that I do. I make sure I got people around me who keeps me accountable.
Right.
Be it my daughter, she does it voluntarily, to be honest with you. So, but I think that's what's missing. Somebody to keep you account. The black head coach at Michigan that got in trouble. Yeah. My question was, who was around him to keep him accountable? And who did he listen to? Apparently, he didn't have it. And so I think that's where the vigilance come in, and having enough understanding about yourself that I'm not a god, that I have not arrived. I'm a work in progress.
Right.
I still got people around me to not be yes people, but also keep me accountable to what I'm doing, what I'm saying.
Right.
That's what's missing a lot. Especially if you climb the ladder of success.
I have to tell you, when I ran for mayor of Compton, California, in the middle of the debate, someone brought up, are you going to be accessible? What if we want to come and meet with you? And I said, in a debate, I think this might have been the nail in my coffin, literally. And I said, oh, I'll meet with anybody. I said, but I'll never meet alone. There will be no private lunches. I will always meet with my staff. I will never meet with anybody alone. And boy, you can hear a pin drop. And I said that right off the top of my head.
I agree with that.
And when I said that, I literally saw faces go. And you could see wheels turning in people's heads. And I mean, I could hear the wagon wheels screeching. And I'm thinking, maybe I shouldn't have said that, because that's what the problem is. A lot of times in politics and major decisions, there are closed doors, decisions made, and handshakes and wink, wink, nod, and that type of funny business going on. And I meant exactly what I said. And that keeps people accountable. I wanted to be accountable. I wanted to, every meeting I had, everything that came across my desk as a potential mayor, I wanted to be able to have my board and panel and city council and, hey, you want to be in on this meeting? And make sure both sides, because I heard so many weird things about, you need a quorum, to get anything done. And if you had so many people on the other side of things, and I was thinking like, well, how come we can't do this for the betterment of the city? And let's just get this thing out there and let's really make this thing roll. So accountability is huge. I think that in the
Mhm.
world that we live in, people need to be accountable. Self accountability, systems, education,
Mhm.
everything else needs to be accountable.
Yeah, I agree.
Rodney, I think we need more of that kind of talk, to be
Well,
honest. Yeah.
I
Yes,
meant
I agree.
that, and it was
Yeah.
a truth. It was a truth. I mean,
I agree. Yeah.
I tell you, Kcarl, where my mind went when Rodney was asking that question was the story, which I'd love for you to tell here, about how Frederick Douglass's former slave owner got turned around.
I don't. There's so many aspects of that. You talk about the letter he wrote to a slave owner and his
Yes. Yeah.
redemption.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
10 years after Douglas escaped from slavery, he wrote a letter back to his former slave master, Master Auld, Auld.
Mhm.
And in that letter, when you go back and read it, Douglas basically says, and I'm summarizing, I forgive you for all the things you did to me. You can come to my house and eat inside the house. I'm not going to make you eat outside like you made me eat outside. Doug said, I'm going to use you as an example how men ought to treat each other. And oh, by the way, I want you to free all 400 of your slaves and to include my grandmother. And until you free them, I'm going to write about you in my books. I'm going to talk about you on social media. I'm going to call you out. So
Mhm.
within a year, Thomas Auld had a transformational moment and he freed all 400 of his slaves within a year. And this was 15 years before the Emancipation Proclamation was signed.
Mhm.
So by Douglas holding him accountable
right.
and agitate him a little bit, so I'm gonna put some pressure on you. I'm gonna blast you out.
Mhm.
That man, that white man
Mhm.
had a change of heart, freed all 400 of his slaves. And as a matter of fact, what he did with Douglas's grandmother, when Douglas' grandmother got so old and couldn't work in the big house anymore, All put her out in a hut in the pasture for her to fend for herself. He put her out there on, I guess you call it social insecurity. So after he freed the 400 slaves, he brought Douglas' mother back into the house and he started caring for her in her old age. So in his second letter, Douglas wrote back and said, I've heard from some friends of mine that you've had a change of heart. You freed all 400 of your slaves. You even brought my grandmother out of the pasture like a horse into the kitchen, and you're taking care of her. You are a man, a sir. He said, you are, sir, an example how men ought to treat each other. Douglas did that with all.
Mhm.
Held him accountable, agitated him, and
Yeah.
appealed to his moral persuasion, with your
Mhm.
moral persuasion. That's
You
Douglas.
know, what I love about that is Douglas's intention and his effort was not towards shaming the former slave owner, although he could have, and the slave owner, I'm sure, felt ashamed because Douglas was laying out for everyone to see, here's what his actions have been, and there was no denying it. But what Douglas
Yeah,
did was appeal to his better nature.
yeah.
And eventually,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think Maxwell felt ashamed because
Mhm.
when Douglas wrote his first autobiography, he mentioned what he experienced under on
Mhm.
All's plantation.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
that's what All felt ashamed because when Douglas wrote that first autobiography, he was a fugitive slave, and All sent bounty hunters go get Douglas. So
Mhm.
he felt some shame. And
Yeah, I'm sure he
but
did.
but but
Yeah.
but that conflict created positive growth is the
Right.
point that we
Right.
got to keep in
Yes.
mind.
Yes.
Wow.
And I love that Douglas left room for redemption.
That's right.
You know,
That's
he
right.
didn't just shame him and say, and he wasn't trying to shame him anyway, but
That's right.
he recognized there would be some shame, but he said, I want you to come be able to be redeemed. I
Right.
want you
Right.
to be able to come back and do what is right.
Mhm.
Because if you're just shamed and utterly condemned, then there's no hope for you. And there's no reason for you to do right after that, because you're just going to stay condemned.
I agree with you. I don't think Douglas created the shame. I think the evil acts of the slave master created the shame. Douglas just elevated it and brought it to his attention and held him accountable to that.
Yeah, that's what I love about that story. Okay, Kcarl, I sent you a hypothetical.
Was it like 4 o'clock this morning?
Did you see that? Yeah, something like that. I did. You saw that. So I want to give you this hypothetical because the thing I love about this book is that I think it gives everybody an opportunity to see how these principles of Douglas can be applied in life situations. So this isn't a great hypothetical because it presupposes a condition that we don't have. So the hypothetical is this. Let's suppose that you have been put down in a community that aspires to be like a utopia. Okay. So there is none of the things that you hate about society in it. There's no coercion. There's actually no government at all. And there's no coercion going on. There's no shaming. There's no any of that. But there is a community storehouse where the food is, and a storm damages the roof in that storehouse. And winter is coming on, and the repairs must be made. Otherwise, all the food in the storehouse is going to end up being contaminated or destroyed. So repairs are assessed, and it's decided that it's going to take 100 people working, until the cold weather hits to make the repairs. So they put out that word and they only get 50 volunteers. So using Douglas's principles, and I'd love to hear what you think Karl Marx would do in response to this. How would they get another 50 people? How would they get a full 100 to be working on this?
Well, I wrote some stuff down, so I'm gonna look at my notes here because I want to make sure, because this is a good example how and this is the current worldview we're dealing with: Marxism versus Douglasism. And so here's my thought. Let's start with Karl Marx. First thing about Karl Marx, in my opinion, he will start off with the idea that the needs of the group come before the individual choice. What I mean by that is, since the food is the community, Karl Marx would say, okay, the community got to be involved. Okay. Then if you don't get involved, there will be coercion to get you involved because you're violating the rules of the community. So let's say, for example, if only 50 volunteers came up, in my opinion, based on reading Karl Marx, he would justify some type of pressure to force to get the other 50. Probably impose some kind of tax. Okay. From his view, individual freedom can be set aside if it stands in the way of the community surviving or thriving. You may have somebody in the community, maybe it's against their religion, to help out with this effort. No. You're part of the community. We're going to force you, go ahead and pay taxes to do this, help out with this. So Karl Marx is all about, not by individual choice, but we're going to make you do it if you don't do it on your own. No, you can't sit this out. We're going to make you do it.
Yeah. Now let me insert here, because there's something else I gave you in the hypothetical that I haven't mentioned to the audience.
It doesn't get fixed.
So every person who has refused to come help with this, in their own mind, feels like they are completely justified in saying no. For instance, there might be someone who says, well, I have a new baby at my house and I need to stay here and take care of my baby. There might be somebody else who says, well, I don't even believe we should have a community storehouse. I think everybody ought to be, taking care of themselves. And there might be somebody else who says, yeah, that's just not my thing. I'm not into, building or making repairs or whatever. I'm an artist. I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to focus on my art over here. Y'all can take care of that.
Yeah.
So now go ahead with that then. And you were saying that Marx would just, yeah.
On Karl Marx, your individual situation doesn't apply. It's about the good of the community. That comes first. And then if it means removing some choices from you about your individual life, so that's the case. But that's what Marxism, that's what communism does. The other thing you asked me was, if the roof gets fixed, what are some of the unintended consequences? So under Marx is, if the roof gets fixed, the unintended result is going to be, over time, you're going to create resentment. If you force me to do something I don't want to do, it was against my religion, but you're going to force me to do it, I'm going to think I'm being treated, of course, treated unfairly, but I'm going to have resentment. I'm going to have fear of the government. Then I'm going to have a loss of freedom. If you're going to make me to put two men on a cake, and it's against my religion, there's going to be some resentment with that. I don't want to do it because it's not my faith. That's what socialism does. Now, contrast with Frederick Douglass. Here's my notes on Frederick Douglass. Douglass believed liberty only works when people act with responsibility. Meaning that he would start by appealing to their conscience, their character, and shared responsibility, not force. Douglass would challenge the 50 who refused by asking them to think about the consequences and their choices and their duty to others. Douglass understood that freedom includes the right to refuse, but also the moral weight of that refusal, meaning that you are free to refuse, but you're not free from the consequences of that refusal.
Right.
You got the right.
Right.
Okay. Douglass also, in reading Douglass would say, real freedom asks people to think beyond themselves. He believed character shows up when people do the right thing without being forced. If you force me to do something, that don't show my character.
So let's say he appeals to them that way and lets them know, here's what's going to happen. If we're all going to lose the food if you don't come and do this. Let's say he gets 25 more volunteers. Now he's got 75, but it's still not enough to make it happen before winter comes. What then? What would Douglass do then?
Douglass still will not have coercion. He still let the people have those individual rights of not being involved. So, but he'll still try to appeal to them on the right of being your brother's keeper in that respect, not by forcing them to do it. That's the difference between Douglass and Karl Marx is this, where Marx would force, Marx would focus on the outcome, fix the roof at any cost. Douglass will focus on the principle, preserve freedom, even when it's difficult. And also, one system gets the job done by force, the other teaches people why stepping up matters. That's what Douglass would say.
Kcarl, I got one for you. Marx versus Douglass, as we keep seeing, just this week alone, I believe there's been roughly 3 mass shootings. And the sad thing is these things keep happening over and over and over again. First of all, we know that mental illness is a big factor in this. But what can you say? What can you say about when it comes down to things about how to impact senseless gun violence from a Frederick Douglass standpoint and or a Marxist standpoint?
That's a good question. I wrote about that recently in an article. And of course, Douglass believed in, Karl Marx also believed in the right to keep and bear arms.
Right.
But from a revolutionary standpoint, Douglass believed in the right to keep and bear arms based on an individual protection standpoint. So Marx said, don't take the guns away from the masses because they're going to use that to overthrow the government. Douglass said, no, they need their weapons to protect them individually, not by overthrowing the government, but protect my family, my wife, my children. my property.
Mhm. Right.
Totally different. So, and I think you hit it right on the head. In my opinion, we don't have a gun problem. We got a mental health problem in this
Right.
country
Right.
that's not really being addressed. Because when they start cutting money state level, they always cut mental health first, or
Right.
somewhere in that order. So I would say from a Frederick Douglass perspective or Frederick Douglass Republican perspective, we
Mhm.
have to make sure we maintain our God-given rights, because that's
Right.
what's, and that's the right to keep and bear arms, because that's what's keeping us free. If we didn't have the Second Amendment rights, I guarantee you other countries would have been here. Some dictator would come in and start threatening our individual rights to take over America. But that hasn't happened because what? You got over 300,000 people in the United States that have weapons.
Right.
That's a large militia.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But that's a very good question, because what I wrote about was the problem with gun violence is not a gun problem. To me, it's a fatherless problem.
Mm.
I read somewhere you got like almost 80% of people in prison don't have a father in their life
Right.
growing up.
Right.
That's so when they grow up, guess what? They don't have a
Mhm.
father, so the gang becomes their father. A criminal
Right.
lifestyle becomes their choice of a career option. And so I think we got to fix the problem with the family. We got to put the father in the home on the life of a child, especially young men. Especially young men.
Do you
That's
think?
part
Do you
of the problem.
do you think that there should be? And see, I'm in the media world, and I understand the challenges of both sides of this whole thing. However, there needs to be some kind of accountability because of the messaging, and sometimes there are things that people keep looking at systems, the music industry. Why are they keep releasing or allowing certain things to be released? But other people say, but it's my freedom to tell my story of what I experienced in the hood. So I'm just trying to tell people, but yet, you know, those can be also motivators for some people who want to idolize and be that something that they're really not. And it's really weird how you see what I'm saying. People are,
That's a very good point, Rodney. Because
yeah,
in the book, Douglas versus Marx, there's one constant theme in that book. People always talk about rights that they have, but never talk about the responsibility that they have.
right.
And Douglas talked about that extensively. Freedom comes with responsibility.
That's right.
You got a freedom to go to school, but you got to be responsible, get off your butt and go to class, kind of thing. So
Right.
freedom and responsibility go hand in hand, and most folks don't see it like that. They separate it. Just talk about freedom, but never talk about responsibility that comes with that freedom. That's a very good point.
There's something else you put in the book that I thought was very illuminating, and that was that you mentioned that Douglas, his whole approach to everything and the way he determined what he was going to do was based on principles. But for Marx, his approach was all based on expediency. So going back to that hypothetical, Marx was all about, well, the problem has to get fixed and it has to get fixed now. And therefore, it doesn't matter what the principles are. This is what we got to do to get the problem fixed right now. But Douglas, his approach sounds like it may not fix the problem right now. And of course, there would be some who say, well, then everybody's going to die this winter. So, and then you're not going to have people to, have principles later. But I want to tell you, Kcarl, I was reading your book when I actually came across that hypothetical on social media. And it was what I read in your book that helped me apply a principle and say, okay, well, how would I work this out? And it took some thinking. But what I finally came up with was, all right, I think I would tell people we need to get this done. We need 100 volunteers to do it because we're not going to be able to get it accomplished before winter sets in. Therefore, we need this many people by this deadline. And if we didn't have them by that deadline or getting close to that deadline, then I think I would say, like maybe 2 days before the deadline, okay, we don't have enough. Therefore, everyone is going to have to be responsible for your own food needs this winter.
Yeah.
Just letting everybody know. Right.
The consequence, yeah.
Right. And then I think there would be people who would be, like the guy who's like, well, I don't think we should be having a community storehouse anyway. He would be like, fine, that's what I'd prefer to do. But there would be others who would say, oh no, winter's coming too fast and I can't do this. And those people would find a way to unite collectively and help each other. And they would be doing it on a smaller scale because now they're not helping the whole community, but they're doing what they want to do and need to do that. You're still going to have others who are saying, no, I don't want to be a part of that. But the freedom in it is at any point, they can switch which group they're in.
That's right. That's right.
The people who are saying, no, I want individual freedom. Well, all of a sudden, if they break their leg and they're like, oh no, I can't fend for myself, I need help, they can become part of that voluntary collective. Yeah. And the same thing with people who are in the collective when they say, being in this collective isn't serving me anymore. It's not, I think I can do better on my own. They have the freedom to leave the group and go do that.
One thing that Doug has talked about in his writings in terms of when you do things on your own, there's a sense of dignity that comes with that. Mm-hmm. You don't get that when you're being forced to do something.
Right.
There's no sense of dignity when somebody forcing you to do it. There's resentment, but it's not dignity. Mm-hmm. He said that's how you grow and that's how you build character, Douglas said. Coercion doesn't build character. Mm-hmm. And when you build character, people start thinking beyond themselves and start doing the right thing. That's why liberty is so important, because it helps build character and being responsible, and also builds and grows dignity in a person, especially in a child. Mm-hmm. When you raise a child that way. Mm-hmm. If we raise children like that hypothetical situation would be easy to solve.
Yeah.
Hey, Kcarl, I got one for you. What is one example of a Frederick Douglass solution to a current problem that's going right now? Just one.
Here's one example of a Frederick Douglass Republican solution. My concern right now, our children are being in the school system are being taught Marxist ideologies. They're not being taught civics. Mm-hmm. Two different things. They've been taught one side of the argument and not being taught what it takes to be a citizen and a functional citizen in this country. So they're not getting both sides of the arguments. They're only getting one. So a Frederick Douglass solution is tell the whole story. Tell the whole story, the good and the bad. And I always tell that United States is not like it used to be. United States, Douglas said, is always improving. Mm-hmm. You don't get that in a lot of other countries. We're not perfect. It's not a utopia, but we have improved. And by being vigilant, we will continue to improve. Mm-hmm. So my Frederick Douglass response would be, Douglass said, and when it comes to liberty, be vigilant. He said, the price for liberty is eternal vigilance. Let's be vigilant. Make sure everybody has the same opportunity to succeed. They have access to quality education where everybody can rise based on their own God-given gifts and talents.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kcarl, what would you say to people then who are saying, no, we don't need to teach the Constitution in schools because it was written by these former slave owners, and therefore, we don't want to be listening to what they say?
That's one of the debates in the book. Have you got to that one yet?
I have.
Douglass said, the Constitution was written by flawed men, but the statement they made is more important than the sin. Mm-hmm. Doug said, don't focus on the sin, focus on the principle. The principle is all men are created equal. Even though they own slaves, don't focus on the sin, focus on the principle. That's what he had to get Karl Marx straight about. Karl
Right.
Marx focused on the sin. Doug said,
Right.
no. He said, Moses sinned.
Yeah.
David
Because the
sinned.
people, the people are flawed,
Right.
but the principle itself is not flawed.
That's right.
So that's what I loved about what you put in there, and how you mentioned that in the Constitution it doesn't say all white men are created equal or all English men are created equal. It just says all men are created equal. There's the principle that is not flawed, and that very principle is what condemned out of their own mouths what they wrote in that Constitution.
They condemned
their
themselves.
own
Douglas said.
actions. Yes,
They condemned themselves.
right.
All men are created equal. You own slave. You just condemn yourself. Doug said that's the glory of it, because
Right.
I can use that to hold you accountable.
Right.
Kcarl, what could you say about the system? Like you're saying, I understand everything you're saying, but how do you interject the Frederick Douglass mindset into the system and not just wait for it to kind of set in or become a utopia, but to make it applicable and force the situation so that all men are treated equal?
I think,
yeah.
I take that in terms of what I personally need to do. I need to probably put my own podcast. I need to grow my platform, get the message out there so people can hear it and know that it exists. I can't sit back and just allow things to move at a slow pace. I got to assert myself. Not just write books. I got to put it in audio format. I got to translate it to Spanish. All those things are important. So I take that as a personal challenge, because we just can't sit back and wait 50 years.
No.
For things we got to make a change. We got to have an impact now. And because of social media and technology, we can do that. I just got to personally stop being a derelict in social media wise and get busy. I'm old school. So I get
it. I get it. It's an uphill climb, but
my son said, son, dinosaurs are old school too, but they're extinct.
Yeah.
So, that's
well,
what we have to do.
And to quote your own book, Douglas would tell you, no, it's not easy, but it is possible.
That's right.
And that's the reason why we should be doing it. Yeah.
When I'm just thinking of several things, and I had a Frederick Douglass moment when I was running for mayor of Compton, California. Compton has always had its image and challenges and things. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to bring back the community watch. And I wanted to bring this thing back and bring back the block club, concept where there was a block captain and everybody on the block looked out for one another, loved one another, knew one another, communicated. And one of the concepts that I was going to institute was a block by block challenge where everybody on the block would have to get together. I don't care if they had to put names in a hat and pull a name out that somebody was going to be the captain. But that captain would say, okay, if there's 30 houses, all 30 men, women, and children are going to go to house number 1. And we all collectively are going to work to beautify this house. The guy in house number 1 has to join the crew to go to number 2. And everybody, and it's a teamwork effort where everybody, and they go house to house to house as a team, and nobody is left out. Everything, and eventually they would look at the house and look at the block and say, look at what we've done as a unit, as a collection.
Yeah.
Is that a Frederick Douglass moment, or is it something different?
No, that means you got to step in and fill in the gap. And it's all part of that. Frederick, to me, it's a Christian moment, because we got to be involved in the success of other people, not just our own.
Right.
And that's like climbing a mountain of success. When some people climb a mountain of success, they take a rope to throw it back down to pull other people up.
Right.
Some people, when they climb a mountain of success, They don't take a rope. They take bricks and throw it down the path. Make sure you don't come up
Right.
that path. So
Mhm.
it's all about being a servant.
Mhm.
If you want to be great, be a servant.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
Rodney, I think I love that because I do think that's a Frederick Douglass idea if no one is coerced to be a part of that group.
That's right. That's right.
Or you don't
Mhm.
tell anyone you have to do this because all your neighbors
Right.
are doing it.
Right.
But
right.
if only 8 people say we want to do this, then you're like, okay, then we're going to fix up these 8 people's houses, and don't you know the rest of the block is going to start saying, well, I want to be a part of that. And okay, great.
Yeah.
When you've been a part of this group for a year, then your house is eligible for doing this too. And that means during that year, you're going to be working on somebody else's house because you can't
Yeah,
have them
that
coming
was
up at
my
the last.
con
Yeah, you can't
yeah,
have
but
them
my
coming up at the last minute and saying, oh, now that you've done all the other houses, now I'll join so I won't have to work and you'll have to do mine.
Yeah. Well, my concept was making sure that everybody was in on it so no one could say no one got left out. Meaning,
Mhm.
if there's a crew of 30, there's always going to be a crew of 30, whether you started house 1 or house 30, all the
Mhm.
houses get reconditioned, the yard gets mowed, fences get mended, things get painted.
Mhm.
Now the benefit is for the whole block because I wanted to create a block by block challenge. And then we go through and document what was the greatest change on which block, And so I
Mhm.
mean, but it was just a motivation to get the community to work together and also bring in resources to make sure that those that could not afford it, everybody was afforded the same kind of support. Oh, we lost
Oh, I
Kcarl.
think we just lost Kcarl. Oh,
He'll
I hate that.
probably pop back in, no problem.
I
But
hope so.
yeah, you're right. It wasn't about forcing the
Mhm.
issue as much as it was making people aware that they need to be part of their community on that block.
Mhm. Mhm.
Meaning, this is your block, this is your little ecosystem, and if it's all beautified, everybody's property value is going to rise.
Mhm.
Everybody's self-worth and commitment to say, well, I helped him, he helped me, and brothers and sisters, we're all here together. There we go. We got Kcarl back. You
I
there?
apologize, man. I have a couple of dogs here, and they're getting in my
Yeah.
lap, telling me
Well,
they got to go
hey,
to the
I
bathroom.
got a little pooch here too, and so she's been drop kicking me the whole time. Ain't that right?
Yeah, man. They let me
Yep,
know
yep,
they need to
yep.
go outside.
Yeah, well, this little squirt here, she's trying to bug me too. But yeah, it happens. Stop. I'm on a chat session. Stop it. There you go. Have to have a conversation with her. Stop it.
Yeah.
Well, and we're actually 8 minutes past our normal hour, so
Oh,
we
wow.
actually. But I know, but see, this is what happens. Kcarl, you always bring such important and interesting topics that we just
Well,
end up having
I
this
can't
great
bring it unless I
discussion.
have
We
good
don't want to quit.
questions. So I can't bring it unless I have good questions to kind of get me going. So I appreciate the
Well,
very thoughtful and profound questions you're asking.
again, everybody, we appreciate you, Kcarl, being on. And again, one last time, I don't want to end on a sad note, but again, everyone, please make sure you pray for the Reiner family and the loss that we've experienced in education and media and the whole creative world. God bless Rob Reiner and his wonderful wife, Michelle. And again, Kcarl, thank you, man, for being on with us. Thank you for visiting. Continued success with your books. And again, how can people get a copy of your book?
It's very simple. You can come to the website or just go to Amazon and get it. If you want to get it for the holidays, go to Amazon. They have a little bit quicker shipping process than what I'm experiencing personally at my own company, because you probably get it before Christmas, I'm sure. But if not, come to the website and I can give it to you. You can post it on the website if you want to. But
All right.
But because the URL is a lengthy one, I don't want to confuse folks with it.
All right. If anybody wants to check us out, please just send us a message, get to us. We'll make sure that we send people your way. Continued success, brother. And thank you for coming on with us.
Hey, thank you for inviting me. I'll see you all again.
Thank
Yep.
you. It's great to see you again,
Take
Kcarl.
care.
And
All right.
y'all out there, have a great Monday and be of good courage. God is with us and we aren't alone. Bye, everybody.
Take care. Have a great day and a great week. And we'll see you.